So like we said earlier, with static routing, it's a bit manual, so you have to put in the networks directly. But with dynamic routing, you don't have to manually put in the network. So basically, you don't have to look for the missing networks and put them there. It will have to be done by the routers themselves. The routers will learn about the missing networks through what we call advertisements. So it's like they are gossips. So this router, say the first router would say, okay, I have maybe if that router has 10 and 20, and this one has 10 and 30. This guy will say, hey, I know about 10 network and 30. And this guy also say, hey, I know about 10 network and 20. And because they receive this advertisement, that's what we refer to as advertisement, they will be able to share that information and say, okay, since this guy says he has 20, I don't have 20, so let me put down 20. And I know that in order for me to get to 20, I have to go here because it was that particular guy that told me about it. And so with dynamic routing, there's what the concept of advertisement where the devices will tell each other, hey, this is how I get there. Or this is how you get there, and then it will be able to learn it. Now, automatically, maybe the networks will be learned by the router from different devices. So one guy will say, hey, I know about it. Another guy will say, I know about it. So it is the job of the router to think about it and say, hey, this guy is telling me something, that guy is telling me something. Which of them has the best route or the best in terms of routes? Which one is the fastest for me or the ideal one or the one that is reliable for me to get to? And so that is done automatically because the router will know about the networks and how I got to know about it. And so that is how dynamic routing happens. Apart from that, with static routing, we saw a case where when something changes, the network administrator would have to go in and then change the routes and say, okay, now something has changed, let me remove the route. But with dynamic routing, when something changes, so the router will still come back and say, hey, I don't have 20 again. Or hey, I received a new route. I now have 40. So it will be sending updates as to every event that happens. So when something happens, it will come back and say, hey, this is what's happening. This is how you handle it. And so that is what dynamic routing does. Again, in static routing, what we were doing was if this guy has maybe 20, 30, 40, and then this is 20 network. So this guy has 20, 50, 60. Now the missing network for this R1 is 30 and 40. And since 30 and 40 are missing, those are destination networks. So we have to look for those destination networks and put them in our device. But with dynamic routing, you don't need to know the networks. You only need to know about your networks. It's like you have to create a list. It's like a football game where when you're going to play a game, you need to have your first 11, and then the opponent will also have their first 11, and then this team will exchange it with this team, and then they will all know which players are playing for which team. And this is just because they exchange information. So you don't need to know about the missing networks. You only need to know about your networks, and then you pass that information to the other device. And that's how it happens. Also, because of the fact that most of the stuff are done dynamically, there's a reduction in the job for the network administrator because you don't need to go in and then you put in the networks. You have to do it directly by just saying that, hey, I want you to be able to communicate with this person, and then they communicate and they share ideas. And so that's how it happens.